conversation with Professor Wendy Byrne. So Professor Wendy Byrne will be known to many people through her successful and high-profile presidency of the Royal College of Psychiatrists. Yeah, but I like to tell people that I knew Wendy before she was famous, because Wendy is a long-serving NHS consultant psychiatrist, and I first met her when I was a junior doctor, so she's one of the best doctors I ever met with, and she also taught me a lot when I was at a formative stage in my career. And she told me that it was really important to put physical health and mental health on the same page. So I'm going to explore that over the next 5-10 minutes or so with Professor Byrne. So Professor Byrne, good to see you. Thank you for the cup of tea.
It's all right, thank you.
And listen, the first thing I wanted to ask you, Wendy, is could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? I know you, but also maybe tell our viewers how you came to be interested in health inequalities, particularly during your time as a president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists.
So it was during my time it probably started while I was dean. I was dean for 5 years before I was president, but it was really when I was president that I saw what was happening, and it was actually the formation of Equally Well that drew it to my attention. So Equally Well is a collaboration that looks at improving the physical health of people with serious mental illness, and it was actually set up while I was president, so I was there from the beginning. I went to the initial meetings and I was part of the launch. And the things that I learnt there about the inequalities, and particularly that people with serious mental illness die 15 to 20 years younger than people without, which is a terrible inequality.
It's an absolute scandal, and it's one of those arresting statistics that is not well known. And if you tell people, they say, oh, why is that the case? Why are we not doing more about that? So it's very interesting to hear about your time with Equally Well. And have you noticed during your time as the Dean and then President of the Royal College that there's been an increased interest in the importance of health inequalities, particularly when you get the ear of ministers?
Yes, no, a massively increased interest, and I'm really pleased that Adrian, who followed me as President, that's one of his presidential priorities, which I'm very pleased to hear about.
Excellent. So we're looking forward to seeing more interest in this topic from the Royal College. It's very exciting that Adrian, the current president,
he's really committed to changing things, and also public mental health hasn't really been a big specialty in its own right. But there's a lot of interest in that growing. So I think that's going to help if we have specialists who are psychiatrists who are interested in public health. I think that will help.
Excellent, and we've noticed that's a very exciting development, and certainly Equally Well have been very strong partners for the Closing the Gap network, and so we're looking forward to continuing working there. So you might not be able to see it behind the camera, we've just had a cat walk in front of us. So Wendy's also famous for her cats on her Twitter profile. So thank you for that, Wendy. Now my second question is, what do you see as the most important drivers of health inequality for people who use mental health services, in particular people with the most severe forms of mental ill health?
So there are lots of drivers. A big one is stigma. There's still a lot of stigma against people with serious mental health conditions, and that sometimes means something we call diagnostic overshadowing. Sometimes physical illnesses aren't recognised. As a group, they're probably less likely to come forward for treatment. They're less likely to attend screening appointments. Often they've had trauma in the past that makes it difficult for them. They're more likely to live in poverty, less likely to earn well. And then there's the medication. There's no doubt that the medication, while we have to use the medication, people can't just be expected to live with psychosis. It doesn't help people's physical health, and I don't think we pay enough attention to that. Two things really: trying to reduce medication, and deprescribing is another area I've become really keen on. So always thinking, could this person be taking less medication? And then physical health checks. So everybody living with serious mental illness should have a physical health check once a year, and we know that only about a third of them are actually getting it, and that's got worse during the pandemic for understandable reasons. But we have to do something about that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've noticed, some of the research that we've been doing in the Closing the Gap network, is that this health inequality has certainly been amplified during the time of the pandemic. And I think it's really important that health services perhaps start to catch up and make sure that existing inequality doesn't become further entrenched. So that leads me on to my next question, which is what do you think mental health services could do to make a difference just at the moment? Maybe you could think of some really practical examples of what services might want to do.
So I think we have to get a little bit smarter about managing the physical health of people in our services. On the whole, that's done pretty well on the inpatient wards, but it's not done so well in outpatients, and we're all a bit overwhelmed. It is difficult. It's hard enough to manage people's mental health. Trying to manage their physical health as well is difficult, but I think we have to set up systems to do that. In Leicester, there's a really good system which is actually run by a pharmacist, where it's all set up and patients actually do get their physical checks, they do get their blood tests, and things are followed up if there's a problem. So it can be done. But yes, as psychiatrists, I think we have to get better at that.
That sounds really promising, really exciting. Maybe we'll seek out a colleague from Leicester who can tell us a bit more about
that. That would be brilliant. I'll put you in touch with her. Her name's Dolly.
That's Dolly Sud.
Yes.
Oh, Dolly's an old friend of our network.
Yes,
so,
and she is amazing. And she has actually got it sorted out in Leicester in a way that works.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, so thank you for helping us think about some immediate priorities and some good examples of things that mental health services could do to improve the physical care of people who use their services. I'm now going to just ask you finally, if you could say a little bit about your role. Now you've moved on from your presidency of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, if you could tell us a little bit more about Equally Well and your role with Equally Well.
Yes, so I now chair the clinical group in Equally Well. Equally Well has two groups. It has the Expert by Experience group and it has the clinical group, and obviously we work together. And one of the things about Equally Well is everything is co-produced. It's equal, there's equality within Equally Well, everything is co-produced. I chair the clinical group. On that we have psychiatrists, we have GPs, we have Dolly pharmacists, we have a dietitian, we have an occupational therapist. So we have a range of people. We're just trying to recruit a dentist at the moment. We have a range of people who can use their clinical experience. And we set up webinars, we write things that are shared on the website, we do little videos as well.
Excellent.
Try and get things out there.
So we'll make sure we've got a link to the really important work of Equally Well. Equally Well are long-standing partners of the Closing the Gap network, so it would be nice to be able to see our partners in crime, Equally Well. We're all interested in this same goal, which is seeking to close the gap for health inequalities for people who use mental health services. So thank you very much, Wendy, and I'm now going to finish my cup of tea. And
I'm sorry the cats have stayed off camera, but they are here. I can see them.
Thank you.